Hello and welcome to not yet another episode of A Myriad of Chains, because this episode is special. It is topical. Yes, today, we are having a topic, and this topic is hot. So we all know and we have all seen it, and I'm gonna say it. It's gender. It's been years that this topic has been floating around. It started on social media, and it has been very divisive. The corporate world has a take on it. Every social media user in the world has a take on it. The left has a take on it. The right has a take on it. And these takes are not always compatible. Here I have the centricity, Pandusas Wardoyo, and I have Chloe Lewis to talk about this. And I'm gonna let you introduce yourselves. I'm just gonna pass the ball to you and let you express yourselves about these topics. We start with our special guest, Chloe.
Sounds good. So thank you for having me on. And my voice is a little bit shot at the moment. So sorry for that. I've been at ETH Waterloo and Collision Toronto, so it's been a fun few weeks. But yeah, I'm Chloe Lewis. My pronouns are she, her, and sometimes they. Identify as female 99% of the time, or just ungendered, I guess. So on the specific topic, to me, gender doesn't play that large of a role in what I do. But arguably, as you said, it's a very divisive topic and everyone does have an opinion on it. So when people ask, of course, they usually want to know one or the other. Like, what are you? It's like being at an event and people are like, oh, what do you do? Right? If they want you to answer. And so it's like, what are you? And so that's usually where that comes from, in my opinion. But I've worked in the crypto space, blockchain space for quite a while. Since about 2017, I was, supporting other people as an analyst. Once I had a little bit of my own crypto, I kind of fell in love with Ethereum as I started investing into it more and seeing all the different ideas that were possible to be able to be built on Ethereum. And I think the idea that uh, like a, being able to create self-sovereign communities, public ecosystems where no one's able to control, who's able to enter or leave, were kind of like the things that brought me into that ecosystem. And kind of one of the main things that drew me in was gender definitely didn't really matter. Like in cryptography or in like computer science, the online digital world, like gender is definitely one of the last things people seem to notice or care, or even if they can even find out what your gender is, anyways, right? A lot of us are PFPs, a lot of us are handles, a lot of us use cryptography to interact with each other. And so I think in this space specifically, gender has meant a lot less than maybe in other spaces. I came from the sports world, for example, where obviously sports is very gendered. You have locker rooms where everyone showers together. You have a lot of issues in the media with trans athletes, and is that fair or not fair? Should it be in the United States, you have more scholarships going to female athletes because based by sport, because football takes up hundreds of scholarships and women don't really have football in the States. So like all these discrepancies between gender. But I think in our industry generally, it's like what you can do and what you can produce rather than like what's between your legs, or what chromosomes you have potentially or not have. But yeah, that's me, and that's kind of my general take on things from a high level. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So what's his pronoun?
It it
It.
it's it that. Somehow it's it that. It's not it they. It's it that.
All right. So, Pandu, the centricity. It is now your turn. You have things to
Sure.
say.
No, I mean, so I guess, if you're listening to the show, you probably know me, but like, I built stuff, on here, on Substrate. I've been in this space for a while. But for this particular topic today, I'd like to share like, so I'm not trans, but I have a friend who's actually intersex. So I'm not gonna like, she doesn't want to appear, but like I'm going to basically just relay a few things. This is a very good friend, so I've talked to her multiple times, like, about this particular issue. It's never publicly. She is, I guess, the trans term for the stealth, the like Danny probably doesn't know what this means. Stealth is like in the closet, but like if it's in the closet, then it's usually like gay people. But like a stealth is like in the closet, but in the target gender, if that makes sense. So if it's so intersex can be stealth, trans can be stealth. Basically, society just thinks they're the target gender, and intersex is a bit different because there's a biological component to it. Usually has like ambiguous genitalia. When we say ambiguous, doesn't mean that that person is like exactly in the middle. It's usually like a bit more here, a bit more there. But like the self-identification can vary. It could be like a bit more male, but like self-identification is female, for example. And it is actually the only part of, I think, LGBTQI that has physical component, like other than brain space, other than within the brain. But like yeah, I'd like to share. I think this is a unique perspective. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, and I agree with Chloe. There like gender doesn't matter on the internet, right? So and being intersex matters even less. But I mean, we're not, we're talking about it just because this topic is there. It's interesting to speak about it.
So I'm gonna dive directly in the heart of the topic, and I'm gonna ask a hard question.
Sure.
Gender in politics, is it actually something that needs to be there? Is it pondering? Is it recuperation? Is it an agenda? What do you guys think?
If I can start, but like obviously you guys follow my Twitter, I'm a bit more right wing than you guys, but what I dislike is not the fact that the LGBT what I dislike is not the LGBTQI movement. What I dislike is the fact that a lot of it has been co-opted, as in like it's been very corporatized, and it's sort of like and because it's corporatized, because corporations and government, they're hand in hand. That's the problem. That's why we need crypto. It's become very politicized as well. And I think that's something that's very unfortunate because like these things, like these yes, there's in my opinion, like these things shouldn't be politicized. You should not be like pigeonholed into a certain political party just because you are gay or trans or intersex even. So my answer to that, gender in politics is already being discussed, but I think they're over discussing it. They're using it instead of actually just saying that okay, like live and let live.
So when you're saying
That's
they, you mean media, corporations, politics, like in general? What
the conspiratorial they.
Is it
The
conspiratorial?
conspiratorial
Conspiratorial
thing.
they.
But yeah, media mostly, and politicians from both sides. Like if it's in the U.S., and from both sides, from all sides. If it's in Indonesia, Indonesia has 47 political parties. Yes,
nice. That's better than
random fact.
two. So
It's even more than in France.
47. Anyway, yeah,
So
that's my thing.
same question for you, Chloe. Debate around gender, and we can even add. I know that this is very different. Well, for some people it isn't. For some people it is. To me, those are tangential topics, but gender added to sexuality in politics warranted. Pandering, recuperation. What is your point of view?
oh, I mean, to me, all of it. I mean, politics is always an agenda. I mean, to what you said, Pandu, the connection of corporations and government is kind of always there. So, yeah, I mean, I think every government on both sides has an agenda when it comes to gender. that makes sense, or else they wouldn't talk about it at all, right? I mean, if there was no political agenda there and no money to be made to campaign on, then I don't think they'd talk about gender at all. There's lots of topics that they didn't want to talk about. So years ago, they wouldn't talk about abortion, right? If you tried to ask a politician about abortion, they would just deflect the question. There was no answer to be had because it wasn't divisive enough. They weren't able to actually decide which constituents would be able to be for and against and clear a vote on it. So now with gender, because there's more people talking about it, because it's more prevalent on social media, and the people have more to say about it, people are more divisive on it. And I think that's where it's easier to be like, oh, okay, as a politician, if I'm red or if I'm blue, I know I can say this about gender because my constituents all believe this, and they've been radicalized on the internet. We did a good job with our money and our corporations. So I know that because these people, like these corporations that are talking like this on Twitter, I know I can start now saying this about gender. I don't think any politician cares about gender one way or most politicians, I don't think care about gender one way or another. Most businesses also don't care about gender one way or another. I think most people don't care about gender one way or another. I think if you're running a business and someone comes in and they want to buy something from you, you probably don't care what the gender is one way or another. But again, if you get radicalized on the internet and then you're able to vote based on something, then I think obviously it's a good thing to add to your bill, to your ballot. It's a good thing to keep talking about on TV every time you go to a new city. And obviously, if you're like a public figure who's very prominent in your space, and you're Republican or you're Democrat, doesn't really matter. But everyone's gonna like believe whatever you say, and you keep saying the same thing over and over again for years, and that kind of becomes what that party believes in. So yeah, I don't really see a big deal with it either way, in my opinion. I mean, like Pride went from a riot to a fun party, which is, in my opinion, a good thing in many ways. I mean, now you have 5-year-old kids at Pride who are having a great time and not getting like stabbed and dogs chased on them and beat up and all that stuff. Instead, 5-year-old kids can go to Pride, learn about their sexuality, their gender, see the world around them, and learn without being threatened. And people who are older get to kind of see the work they've done and the difficulties they've gone through. And when I go into like a Target or a large store and I see all this fun gay stuff for the month of June for like Pride Month. Yes, very very corporatized, very economized. The gayness of the world. But that's also what funds the police and the barricades and the TV shows and everything else that arguably supports and protects LGBTQI people. So.
All right, so there is actually one thing that passed through my ears and hopefully stayed between for a little while. It's you talked about being radicalized, right? This act of radicalization. First question: what would you take as too extreme poles on the radicalization spectrum? And how do you think this is done? What is the I'm gonna say the process of radicalization? How do you see it?
Oh, I mean, I think the polls are difficult. I think it's very easy to get people to maybe a topic that's not a very big deal, and then just find a way to get something radical on that topic. So I don't think you necessarily have polls all the time. I think it's mainly just there's all these topics in gender or that don't really matter. So one of the big ones is like the opposite gender in bathrooms. Obviously, it doesn't really matter because much of the world has gender neutral bathrooms. So if you go to Europe, for example, you go to France, you have unisex bathrooms, and no one really cares what the gender. It doesn't. You go to the bathroom. You're not going there to like hook up or make out. You're going there to relieve a bodily function, and you leave. But in the United States, because of the culture, it's very easy to radicalize someone and say every single trans person in the bathroom is a rapist. You have many, many, many people who believe with 100% fact that if they see a trans person in a bathroom, that person is a rapist. They're there not to go to the bathroom. They're there to attack other women, for example. That is a firm belief many people have, and that, in my opinion, would be a radical belief. And then how that comes is quite easily. I mean, if you start uh, taking up a story of one person who might have been caught in one bathroom who did this, all right? Or you start going on Twitter and get people to continue repeat. I mean, like these days, you can run a bot for like a few $100 that will take a story and hit every single demographic that is likely to be radicalized, and then keep showing them. Like it's really easy, and people don't know it. People are very susceptible to. They only open their phones an hour a day, or whatever, a couple hours a day. They scroll through the exact same things for those 3 hours, and if they see trans people are aggressive, trans people are in bathrooms, trans people are taking over sports, trans people are doing this every single day for years, all their friends start saying it. They go to the bar, they see another news story about it because it's now on the news as well. Then yeah, to them it's not radical, because to them there's a huge community of people that believe there's always someone more radical, first of all, because it's the internet. There's always someone who is crazier than you, so you're sane. That's kind of how it works, obviously, in people's minds. And there's always a huge community of people that believe what you believe, which is a positive, of course. People get to have community and don't feel alone, but that can mean that whatever radical ideas you have start to feel normal.
So
yeah, I think that like people.
where would you put yourself on the political spectrum? Are you more left leaning, centrist, right leaning, on American
I'd say
standards?
honestly, I'd say in the middle would probably
In the middle.
be
A
where
lot of
I'm at.
people are.
I just don't care. I just don't care enough, in my opinion. Like, I think both parties are equally pretty much just like useless. I don't think either of them care
It's a
whatsoever what happens
unicorn.
to the people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like in the United States specifically, you only have two parties, so neither of them has to care whatsoever about the people,
But it's
because
like
no matter which one you vote for, like the same corporations are putting them in power. So
right.
obviously, it's the corporations that are choosing what they want, which is not a big deal.
Right.
It's just it doesn't actually matter what the outcome
Yeah.
is. Like
So
it's me
Just
or
the
my brother,
incentives.
we're the same incentives.
because like what you said is something like this type of radicalization is for what I've seen, right, for on the media online and whatever, is more often attributed to people who are right leaning, right, to the American right, conservative people saying like every trans people in a bathroom is a rapist and thing like that. Pandu, who
Yeah.
is more familiar with the American right, could you give the
I'm
counterpoint to
actually
that?
sure. And this is fun. And I wanted to just add like something that like my friend once told me, that you guys did you guys know that this issue of like uh of basically not trans people back then, but like intersex people being in women's sports has do you guys know when the first case was?
It was a while ago, in the 80s or something, right?
1932.
30? 32.
Yeah. So intersex people were actually just like the OG issue started with intersex people. And then like after that, they implemented basically chromosome testing first. And chromosome testing actually didn't help much because there's a lot of intersex people with like chromosomes that are like XY, but because they're fully androgen and sensitive, they're like physically female. That's so that didn't work. So then they ended up testing for hormonal levels, which is where we are now, basically. So because like if you're a trans person, your target gender, like if you have like if your doctor's a professional, then like once you will hit basically normal hormonal levels for your target gender, basically.
If you
Right.
switch your
So
hormone,
that's that actually coupled with the fact that the Olympics actually determined that if you are like it's a determination to say, because like and it's a determination because of intersex people, that if you've already had like normal hormone levels for your target gender for like I think it was a year for the Olympics instead of 6 months, but like in the US high school it's 6 months or something. It means that you can play as that gender, right? So yeah, obviously yes, I am. Here's the thing though, like I have a certain position on this, and this is I guess more right wing. I guess it can be considered more right wing. I just want to share, like, by the way, I'm just gonna share the Wikipedia article that I read all of that from yeah. But yeah, I actually have like if you guys like just FYI, Myriad has something called timelines, so you can curate your own timelines. Like you can curate Russia and Ukraine. You can. My friend curates world conflict. Um, you can curate AI. So I'm curating basically this list of base transforms. So every time someone imports tweets from them, it comes here. And these, I like, in terms of politics, uh, I align, and my friend, my intersex friend actually aligns here. Basically, now the thing is, how do we so really good follow. These people, they're really, really good follows. But the focus is always about, the excesses of pride, as in parties, and especially in front of kids that are like, that include naked adults or things like
So you
that.
think
So
nudity
not
is something that we
related
should
to,
hide from
yeah.
people
Uh,
in general?
uh
Like
well,
humans shouldn't be nude or should nude,
I
something
mean, not
along
the I guess the position is more like not in front of the kids.
But then why are you? So, for example, this is like
Mm.
so like at some point, parents have some responsibility of their own children, arguably, right? So if
Yeah.
pride is about you know being open and loving your body and no barriers and everyone just being out there, and you don't necessarily want that for your kid at that age, right? Maybe some parents are like 12 is okay for my kid. Some parents are like 14 is for my kid. Other parents might be like 18. Like this is
Mm.
adults. That's when you can make those decisions. But like as a parent, there's like
Mm.
no reason your kid should be going to Pride until 18
That's a good point. That's a
if
good
you're
point.
watching your
Yes.
child. So like even all these drag shows and everything else, it's like
Mm.
at some point, if again, even on the Republic, that's why I'm saying I'm in the middle. I'm quite libertarian, if anything. But like, why does the government care at all what parents are doing with their kids at
Oh,
whatever show?
yeah.
If arguably it's up to the parent what they do, and if parent takes a kid to a show because it's if that kid is trans and
Mm.
that kid needs to see role models in their space and see like trans is not just people out there being naked and whatever. There's also
Mm.
people that would be the first time someone's seen a trans naked body. Like if you're a parent and the only way a kid might see a naked body is through porn, 5-year-olds watch porn. Like,
Mm.
it's not very difficult for a
Mm.
5-year-old go on the iPhone their parents gave them and go Billy in their classroom and said, "Oh my gosh, click this link," because their older brother gave it to them. All of a sudden, your 5-year-old daughter, son, whatever, is watching transgender porn. And that's the only thing
Mm.
they'll know about for the next 10 years about what a transgender body looks like. So, in my
That is a
opinion, I
very
would
good
rather
point.
have my
Mm.
transgender child see a controlled, safe pride environment where I know it's more about love and self expression and not sex than be the only way they see that be important. So, as an example, that's where I could see pride being actually a very important place to allow people to potentially be naked, potentially do these things. And if you don't think you should want to be there or you want your kids to be there or whatever,
Mm.
and in my opinion, definitely don't bring your kids anywhere near it. And that's where I think communication, education, and like personal self sovereignty is like what's most important. Where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be showing that on like
Mm.
the TV or something, and a kid at school
It's
won't
the
know. Like you
parents'
shouldn't force it on
responsibility.
kids.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's so. I think that's where I want a more Republican side, where I know some parents don't want their kids doing like sex education in certain ways or whatever else. To
Mm.
me, that's fine. If you want your kids to not know about sex and learn about it from their friends and the internet, that's fine. Like I don't see a reason why the school needs to force kids to learn about reproduction or whatever else. When that kid's 18, if the parents are very good, strict parents, let's say, the kids shouldn't have sex anyway. And at 18,
Mm.
they can go to a sex ed class on their own and learn whatever they want to learn. I think like the issue is that parents don't actually parent. They want the school to parent. And then when the school starts parenting and the government starts parenting, they get upset and say, no, parent my kid like this, which obviously creates issues.
So I'm gonna allow myself an
Yeah.
opinion here. Um,
Please do.
it's again personal opinion, and I'm not here to distribute points on any side because there is no side. We're all friends. As a Frenchman, right? Who's got probably, well, I was born in the early '80s, right? Where the culture was post Summer of Love still. For a big part, my parents were total hippies. So that's a little background about me, and I've also had a tight relation, not intimate relationship, not how do you call it, amorous relationship, but a very tight relationship with a person who's was a cross-dresser, who was also um, um, his body identified as a male most of the time, but his body was ambiguous. um, so little yeah, little context in there. To me, sex ed actually should be a human right. It should, because if you look at countries where sexuality is repressed, the less kids know about sexuality, the more things like teenage pregnancy happen, and family drama also happen a lot, and we end up with a lot of young, like single teenage mothers. This is bad psychologically. This is terrible for society. This is terrible for the economy. So, like, I just wanted to interject there.
But then who decides what the sex ed curriculum is? I think that's the main problem. It's not about,
hmm,
obviously, I think we all agree that sex education is important and everyone should learn about, like, the sexuality shouldn't be repressed and it's better for everyone. I think we can
Yeah.
hopefully all agree on that. But you're always going to have one parent being like, sex ed should be like this, another parent saying sex should be like this. So why don't parents just teach their kids about sex? Agreed. Every single kid should learn about sex as a right, but their parents can teach them. If a kid wants to learn about it and they don't have parents to teach them, there should be outside of school classes where any kid can go learn on the weekend, learn about sex in their own kind of curriculum. There could be LGBTQI classes for kids to learn about. There could be, more gay, lesbian, traditional. There could be intersex classes specifically. And if your kid wants to learn, they can get into groups, create communities, and learn. I don't think there's any reason why it needs to be forced, why it needs to be taught in schools. Like, I just think the divisiveness of that is unnecessary. It's politicalized for fun. There's no need to be in schools. You could just use the exact same tax dollars you use to create the curriculum and have it outside of schools or after schools. Like in my school, was an after school optional program where you could take one that was more female, one that was more male, or your child could do both. One of my good friends, her mom wanted her to learn about both, so she went to both classes. Most of the males watched the male video, most of the females watched the females video, but some kids watched both, and it was fully optional. This to me yeah, sure, your friend can then teach you if you didn't learn. But yeah, I think it's definitely a right. I definitely agree, Danny. I just think like the forcing part is what creates the divisiveness. So like parents should be in control of their children.
I mean, yeah, personal responsibility and sovereignty, and obviously the parents need to be able to. So here's basically probably where we differ is like, first of all, I agree with you like 100%. Like sex education needs to be there. Like and especially since my friend who's intersex, like the only like biology doesn't teach like even if you have sex ed, you probably don't have like education on intersex people. At least here. Yeah. Like and it's it gets confusing, and obviously like a lot of intersex people are not open about it because of it. Because it's not very like no one is aware of it. No one is aware of like what the I stands for. Like everyone knows what Q stands for now, but not I.
Yeah, it's pretty easy
so
to
I agree.
misspell, I guess, as well.
Sex education, I think that's super important. I think everyone should like try to fight for that, especially in countries like Asia, where like countries in Asia which do not have proper sex education. So I wasn't debating that. Like and not debating, but like my opinion is like still that like if it's in a public space and it's an event, and even though it is pride and you have to have pride, there are cases where the parent isn't able to choose because it's basically a sexual, even though a simulated sexual act in front of their kids.
What do you mean the parents not able to choose? The kid shouldn't be there. What do you mean?
Because I mean, like when I was in Miami and there was a pride parade last year, like I went out with my mom, and I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown ass woman, and
so So then question,
I was
grown-ass
walking
woman,
down the
not a
street.
child. So
I
why did
wasn't,
you
I was,
feel uncomfortable with a simulated sexual act? That would be the question I would have. Adults are
I,
consenting, doing their own thing. So why does that make you feel uncomfortable?
I saw, like, for me, it's not me per se. Like, I'm a grown ass woman, but like,
Yes,
if I was
I'm
a
just trying to like
kid,
ask.
I would
But
be
that's what I'm
really,
saying.
really
So,
upset seeing of the
but
bare, but like they're like,
but okay, so what I'm saying is if you as a kid would feel that way, your
mm,
mother shouldn't bring you to Pride. Does that make that's what I'm trying to
no.
say.
Here's
Like,
the thing, though. Here's the thing. Like,
yeah,
let me set it up. I was on
yeah.
Ocean Drive, right? Ocean Drive was a
Mhm.
hotel. Like, I was in a hotel on Ocean Drive. I went out. I couldn't
Yes, but
avoid
you
it.
knew the Pride parade, but you knew the Pride was happening in Miami
I lived
on
there
that
for like
day.
4 months. I lived on like at the hotel for 4 months. I
Yes,
didn't know the
and but
Pride
okay,
Parade was coming to town.
well, either okay. So my opinion, either way. So, example. So your friend, as an intersex person, where do
Hmm.
they see intersex bodies? Outside
Well,
of the
so
internet, outside of porn, outside of where do they see a real intersex body? That was my question.
that's a bit more difficult for intersex people because like intersex people, from what I know,
Hmm.
a lot of them actually get access. Like, there's no intersex porn. Like, I think there's no intersex porn. I don't know, but like, there's
I would
very
assume
little.
that there's
So
people.
that's
again, I wouldn't know either, but I'm
but
assuming
but
everything
like
exists out
if
Rule
there
it's
for
if
people
34
that want it.
would stipulate that there is, but yeah.
there should be like there's probably is like I don't know, but intersex people usually, because of like a it's a bit of a different situation, right? Like, I'm not gonna say like that my friend has the same lived experience as you do, but like an intersex person usually gets talks to a doctor. Like, okay, I
Okay,
know
but
that's
does
not
that
an
doctor
alternative.
have an intersex body? No, I'm just being perfectly honest. If you're
Mm,
male, you have showered with other men and seen their
mm.
naked bodies generally. I mean, I've seen it before as well. Like
I mean,
growing up,
yeah, sure,
socialized as
sure.
male, you have showers with your sports mates, and you see them naked. So nakedness inherently is not evil. In most cultures, no one is saying that nakedness is evil. I see what you're
Hmm.
saying about the simulated sexual act. People get drunk,
Mm.
they go a little crazy. It's a party. Okay, like we don't. I'm not trying to sit here and say that people should be out on the street in the middle of the day doing sexual acts. What I am, I think we're talking
Mm.
mostly about the nakedness and about that specifically. So what I'm saying is, in most of our cultures and around the world, people are
Okay.
naked, right? In certain settings, and it's arguably okay, right? When I was playing soccer in
Right.
France, it was very weird for me. But yeah, 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 10-year-olds, whole group of them were all showering together, and it's totally normal. At the beginning, I used to go
I
home
mean,
without showering, and they used to be like, "Oh, why are you not showering with us? It's weird."
I didn't say the nakedness bothered. It's more like it is also an issue, but like I specifically
But I
said
think we can
simulated
start
sex
on
act.
an issue that kind of yes, but okay, but you're saying you still find nakedness an issue. So I think that's where we could start talking about because again, if we're talking about
Mm,
sexual acts in public in daylight in a public place, I think that's illegal regardless. And so I don't think we're talking about the right topic. I think
mm,
the articles that you shared were talking about nakedness specifically and children seeing that at a young age.
mm,
And so my main point was first of all, don't bring your kids. And you brought up a very valid point of, well, I was living there for 4 months, didn't know Pride was coming to town. I
mm.
could just have my kid in my condo and they could be seeing like stuff on the street, for example.
Yeah.
Um, so in that case, I would then that's where I was bringing up like where do you people see naked bodies outside of porn? And so that's what I was kind of saying. In my opinion, again, this is my opinion. Naked bodies aren't inherently like evil or something that people shouldn't see. I don't necessarily think that. Like when I'm in the Caribbean, at a very young age, there'd be topless women all the time. You know, carrying like, those kind of things were seen all the time, and it was not weird. Mothers breastfeed their kids, like all these things in some
Okay.
cultures are so gross and weird. Like, ew, you're breastfeeding. Like, wow, how dare you show that in public? And other cultures, it's like, what do you mean? Like, just you're on
Yeah, I
public
mean,
transport,
yeah,
you just whip
that
it out and
part
do
is
it.
cultural. That the nakedness part is cultural, but like the simulated sex thing, I think it's a universal, right?
Well,
You
that's
don't let your kids see it, wouldn't
well,
it?
yeah, but
I don't know.
that's like taking your like that's like parties and like I don't know. I think that's more of a pride being a party versus like a
Yeah.
specific
Yes.
drunken acts. Like cops are usually at Pride, and if cops generally see sex acts, like that's usually not what's I mean, like. Hey, I've been to Pride. I generally don't see much sex acts. Yes, lots of naked people. Yes, lots
Mm,
of water bottles and water guns and people having a good time. I generally don't see lots of just sex acts everywhere. It's usually a parade, right? It's usually like a relatively like structured floats and parades of people. And yeah, lots of kids and people. So I'm sure it happens. Like I think this is what I mean by radicalized though. I'm sure it happens, right? And I'm sure it gets talked about. I'm sure there's a picture, and I'm sure it gets on the news, and I'm sure it gets on TikTok and Telegram, and I'm sure it gets shared like wildfire throughout the entire community. And then I'm sure, and then someone goes shoots up a school board before Pride happens, saying, "Don't have Pride in my city." And that's what I think going back to like how do you think people get radicalized is because like something that arguably probably isn't the biggest deal because kids are watching porn, which is way worse than any sex I can see at Pride, right? Like the average kid at Pride is like 8 to 12, maybe. They're probably watching way worse
porn is
things.
bad. Like actually having education is better. Like that's I guess again like not the same lived experience with my friend as an intersex person. She the only place like I was starting to say this, like the only place she ever got to basically see a body that sort of looked like hers is through textbooks, but like not school textbooks. Like she had to look it up, like and she told me that she like went to the library. It was back then. This is like she's an older woman.
Yeah, and this is where education kind of provides like
education. I agree. In fact, education, like sex education, I believe should be expanded. I think because there's a bunch of stuff that people don't exactly know. There's been focus.
LLMs will hopefully help us with that.
Hopefully, I mean, yeah. I mean, if we can align them.
Well, I mean, there'll be the general like, what is an intersex person? What does that body look like? And then there'll be like the approved image and video. Because again, I mean,
customer facing, yeah.
Microsoft can't go show everything, so they'll be like, this university has approved this, and at least that's why
it's going to be pretty great. I have a lot of hope, like not related to this topic, but I have a lot of hope to for the open source LLMs, as you know. And yeah, I think it's.
I hope we all get more access to open source, but
we should.
I don't think everyone will get as much access to open source.
There's 2 LLMs running in there right now. There's 2 LLMs running in there right now, like the blinky.
Counting you, there are 3, Pandu.
Me. Oh yeah.
We have established that you are an advanced LLM.
You were the 3rd.
I have a different AI approach, Danny.
So there is something I would like to add, both as a parent and as a white cis hetero male of 40-year-old. You can't get more vanilla than this. But when I was a kid, right? I used to shower with other kids, like other little boys, when there were sports activities, which was already quite bothersome because the water wasn't that hot, and it was usually in the winter that we had these activities where you had to shower or anything. It was really not nice, but I was never comfortable.
Okay, sorry.
Like being naked around other naked guys, like never. And I'm not saying that in opposition to your point that there is no inherent evil in nakedness, because as an adult, I completely share it. But something that I think we don't debate enough, we don't actually talk about enough, is the notion on young children of intimacy. So nobody ever asked me whether I was comfortable with this or not. Nobody asked my opinion. Yeah. So I do agree that kids cannot consent because they can't be informed on anything. Their brain is literally not fully developed yet. It takes a while.
So quick question. Do you feel as though the solution would have been asking you, like, if there was a different, like a personal shower there, and the culture was more, hey, there's the team shower here, most people are showering together, but hey, like, it's totally fine. Don't feel like more of a conversation, a walkthrough, other people were doing it. How do you think that would have changed it, or do you think it would be different?
I think whatever the outcome, the simple fact of just being asked about it would have made me feel acknowledged. And, as a kid, it's very important to feel seen and to feel acknowledged in order to let's say, develop healthy bounds with and healthy boundaries with
Mhm.
society at large. But it never happened, and now I'm a shut-in. I never leave my room, really, never. No, that's a joke.
I know what you
That's
mean, but
good.
I think
It's a
like a
bad,
lot of those
it's a
things,
very bad
a
one,
lot of
but
those things as kids though do, I mean, like do
mm,
stick with people for life regardless, right? And so like
Mm.
like the shame of nakedness, I think a lot of times does come from like the culture, whether it is too much nakedness or not enough nakedness, right? Some people grew up
mm,
never sharing the naked body or any part of the body with anyone, and they get older, it's like like I can't be intimate with
Did
anyone.
you guys watch Arrested Development? Like the
yes, never
I
knew.
did, but so long. So
Oh, dude, like there's a character that's like a never naked or something, like so he
I need to go
basically
back and
wears
watch it
like
now. So
trunks to the
Yeah, he
like
showers with trunks. Yeah, with trunks on. Which I
yeah,
mean,
like so
more power to
there's
him.
both
But
sides of it.
anyway,
Like
this
no,
I
but I agree with that point of like just
mm,
kids. It's very difficult for kids to consent, and I think like the younger the kid is, the longer the conversation has to be. So even like, and I think even educating parents, like I think this is one of the good
I
ones.
have a
Like,
funny story
uh,
about yeah.
so quickly, like the question because you were asking Danny like the opposite version of like all trans people in bathrooms are rapists, and maybe the opposite would be like it's okay to bring your kid to Pride as a blanket statement,
Mm.
right?
The
Like
truth is
maybe or
somewhere in the
it's
middle.
okay to bring to your kid to a drag show as a blanket statement. Where like if you ask your kid, do you want to go to this show? Yeah, I mean, if a mom or dad is excited and the kid doesn't, is sitting there,
Mm.
they're probably going to say yes, like regardless of what the show is,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
they want to make their mom or dad happy. There's no way they're going to
Right.
say no. But like having a real conversation, showing them some like maybe some pictures first of being like, hey, this is what's happening there. Like
Mm.
making them know, hey, if you ever feel uncomfortable, we can leave at any point in time. I definitely don't think we see more of that enough of that happening. And I don't think that education coming from like Pride, for example, coming from these like organizations being like, hey, as a parent, here are some questions you should go through before bringing your kid to Pride, or before, like, as a city of Miami, for example, before coming anywhere near these state places, make sure if you have a kid under the age of 12, you're going through these few,
Mm.
pointers. Here's what you might see. I don't think we see enough of that, for example. It's probably too much on the side of everything's good and don't worry about anything and whatever else. Then we get issues where kids don't get asked and it's not consenting, and then yeah, lifelong, not even psychological, right? I mean, we have lifelong mutilations. I mean, even the sports one, if I was younger and someone told me I couldn't play sport unless I did hormones,
Mm.
I would have taken hormones, right? Like, there would have been no one who would have stopped me from taking hormones. Um, but now I don't take hormones because I'm older and I don't need to play sport, and that's my decision. But now we're mutilating kids and forcing them to take hormones so they can fit in with their
Mm.
friends. So it's a bit like
Yeah, I think
it's interesting
yeah,
your story.
I think it's just like a matter of like respecting self-sovereignty, right? Like and understanding what like but
At
like
every
yeah, and
age, yeah.
also like what Danny said, like since kids' brains aren't developed enough, like consent is not very easy for kids like to determine whether they have actually consented or is it because of like the parents being excited.
Yeah,
I,
they wouldn't even know, right?
I
So if the parents have to like
mm,
start to realize those things, like, okay, you know what? It seems like you're saying yes just for me, maybe next year. Like maybe the
mm,
parent, like,
yeah,
there's no rush on bringing your kid to a drag show, in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. I have a This I have a funny story, like, and this is a story that happened to my friend again. Like again, like she's sorry she's not here, but like this is a story that she told like she hasn't told a lot of people, but like it's a funny story. So when she was young, she basically like kids, right? Like she basically like there was a friend, and the friend was male, and she basically dropped her pants down and showed what like I'll show you yours if you'll show you like
yeah, kids
what
being
kids do.
kids.
And it was a very confusing experience for her because of the fact of the biological fact that she's intersex, and her parents found out and was like super um like like I guess like after that like there are letters to the school, etc. Like and that intersex person didn't like didn't ever have an experience of being naked in front of others. Like that's just and it's I don't know why I said it's funny. It's actually kind of sad, huh? But yeah, the thing about like, you know, having I think like, you know, as a kid, like you don't really know, like it's you don't realize that it's weird or different or whatever, like in comparison to people, you do, right?
Well,
Yeah,
you
you don't
know,
really notice till that first time. Like,
if you take
Yeah.
the point of view of the other kid, like the little
Oh,
boy,
the other kid's gonna be traumatized for life, I'm
not
pretty sure.
traumatized, but pretty confused for quite a long
I'm
time.
kidding.
Like this is okay, okay. I didn't imagine it like that, or maybe I did. So, but
yeah, who
like,
knows what they were learning, right? So, and this is
but
why obviously education is
yeah.
important, right? So,
But that's actually, yeah, where education is important. You do, for me you do make a good point about this. And I want to share another thing about my own experience, right? My mother, by today's standard, would have been considered homophobic, like as hell, right?
Mm.
Because we actually, my family had a lot of gay friends, and every time I would go out with a gay dude, she would tell him, if you touch my son, I will shoot you twice. And we had a pump action shotgun, so like she wasn't joking,
I
like, at
meant
all.
it. Yeah,
uh
Oh wow.
Italian, you know.
Oh
fair
wow.
enough.
So yeah, Mediterranean people sometimes they can be a bit hot-blooded. I mean, from experience, right? This is not racism, like my mother, okay?
You're not
So
racist against your mother. Okay. All
at
right.
this point, that would have been considered that is considered by a lot of people, I think, pretty homophobic, like in this experience.
Hmm.
Um, but actually, this is because of this, and I was young, right? I was when this thing happened, I was 12. I was yeah, I
Hmm.
think the youngest, I was 12, and it was uncle, like uncle whoever, Uncle Peter, who took me out to go somewhere.
Hmm.
And the thing is, even then, it taught me to not give a damn, really, because Uncle Peter never actually molested me, which
Yeah, yeah.
it's a normal thing
Which
to
which
expect
is
from people,
good,
which
but
is pretty good.
a lot of
Yeah.
uncle whoever's do think like I've had lots of friends that have had other sides.
Yeah,
So maybe it's good that
Oh,
your mom was there with the shotgun, like
yeah.
making it very clear. Like, yeah, I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. Just saying that, like,
yeah, no, but this is
parents
actually
have to
good.
protect their kids. So,
This is actually good that you mentioned that, because yeah, I mean, like, I know that Uncle Peter would have never molested me, but
mhm.
we never know about, like, Uncle Kevin, or whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
It's always Kevin. It's always the
We
Kevin
need to
thing.
talk about Kevin.
We need to.
So, oh, this is an obscure reference to an obscure movie. Sorry. So, in any case, but what it helped me with is, like, when later on, I was 16, right, and I dabbled in graphic design. I did a flyer for a party for a friend of the family who was lesbian, and we had an LGBT party at her home, and we
Hmm.
ended up in a gay we ended up in a gay disco, right? And we ended up in a gay transgender transvestite, all this side of trans after party,
mhm.
in a basement somewhere. And
Sounds fun.
I was completely unfazed. I didn't give a damn. Well, I was pretty. There was an ego boost because, like, I was hit on, like pretty heavily, but
I could imagine. Yeah, up there with ooh,
I
the cis one.
yeah
Oh, oh,
I
that is
looked I
good.
looked very pretty. I looked very pretty when I was almost as pretty as you, Chloe. So I got hit on a lot.
Oh wow.
Um, but and now I want to say almost as pretty as Pandu too. So, like, I put you on equal footing. So nobody is fighting. Diplomacy. It's hosting is
There you
hard.
go.
But
Do
that's all it did. That's all it did. But you're right. Actually, the shotgun thing maybe might have prevented something. We'll never know.
You never know.
You'll never know. I think it's
I mean,
always good. I think parents doing crazy things
parenting is
with their
important.
kids,
Dude, parenting is,
always
I don't
good.
have kids of my own, but like for real. And I think it's just like a lot of the debates that we have online about this particular topic is all about, it's a misunderstanding because like I think both sides, neither of the sides are monsters. We're all human beings and we
Well,
want
most
to
people,
hear
yeah, most
kids.
people aren't monsters.
Most people aren't
Some
monsters,
people,
right?
but
Some people are. Some people
most
are.
people.
I'm not saying some people are not. Some are lizard people, but
Most of
yeah,
us, most of us.
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's I think we need more conversations, and that's not happening so much.
Well, we don't
It's
have
like
time for conversations anymore. Bunch of
that's the thing,
meetings, you have
right? That's it.
kids, you have
I
things
was
to
about to
do.
say this. I swear to God. We're too busy, and like we have these damn computers on our like, and we're like constantly on them, and it's like, and like you can, even if you try to slow down, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you get sucked back in, and it's all very short stuff. We learn so much
Mhm.
every day. We learn something new every day, and it sounds like a good thing, but not if you're learning at a rate that's like a billion times faster than the human mind was
And you
designed
can never
for.
actually build at that rate anyways. So
Yeah,
it's
I
great to
mean,
learn, but then you have to actually connect with other people and like figure out, oh, we all learn this stuff. What are we going to build with it? Or else we'll just, yeah, keep learning.
I
Like, yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I wish
LLMs can do that for us. Like, they can just
LLMs,
keep
yeah,
learning
LLMs.
at whatever rate.
I
We
I
have
think
to
that's
actually then come.
I think that
I'm
that is
excited for it
coming. There's some
very
danger to
soon.
that also. Like, so it's already here, obviously. But like right now, we still need to talk to the LLMs to build stuff most of the time, right? But
Well,
like, they're actually good enough now. Like that like even a
they do
self-hosted
basic
one
tasks, like, yeah.
can build like, you saw what I made, right? Like
Mhm,
the built like code from scratch, from like because I run Linux, like I tell it to like
mhm.
I don't know, spin up a VM, and it figures it out on its own. It's cool,
See,
and that's gonna
we are
still
at a
happen.
point where we're getting very close, where it's like,
Very close.
yeah, you can tell
I'm
your
very close
Chrome
to
to
the
take pictures of you for the event and send them on Myriad
right.
and post these tags and whatever.
Really close to the end of like the identity too, because like when you're surrounded by these LLMs and they act for you, like those little bots that like have your face and probably your voice, they're gonna call up restaurants. They're already doing that with like the what Google's doing, right? But like they're
Hmm.
gonna be like not just calling restaurants, they're also gonna be calling like business partners that you don't know, like you didn't know that you needed this business partner, but like, oh, my LLM has arranged a
Yeah,
partnership
and
with
it puts
them.
it in a little list for you, and
It's
but
a
who has
distributed
access
person,
and can afford it? So it'd be like
and
what, 10% of
that
the
brings
world
us,
that can afford it, maybe 20%, and then
yeah,
everyone else
it
falls behind.
it brings us up back to gender, right? Like straight to that. Like when we were
Mhm.
younger, right? Like there's like this saying on 4chan, there are no girls on the internet. And a
Hmm.
lot of people take offense, but I never took offense, even though I'm a girl. Like I never took offense because because in my mind, it doesn't mean the same thing. It doesn't mean that there are no girls on the internet. There are obviously girls on the internet. There's no gender on the internet, is what it
Hmm.
means. As in, like, if you're a girl, like, if you're a like if you're a girl, physically you have some advantages, and physically you have like a disadvantage, right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
if you're
I know what you
pretty,
mean. Yeah.
girls get stuff for free, right? Even if you're
Hmm.
not very pretty, if you're good with makeup, you get stuff for
There
free,
you
right?
go.
Like,
Yeah.
Someone teach me
law of
makeup.
nature of
Right
photo.
there you go. Danny's got a
Here,
pretty enough face. Let's go.
his lips are amazing, you know. But like, but on the internet, especially on 4chan, because you can't really like put in a profile pic or whatever. Like, the
Hmm.
only way you can tell people you're a girl is to tell people you're a girl, and that's just
And
like,
who
why?
they believe you? Like, I don't
Right.
believe you.
They
Yeah.
also have to believe you, right? So there are no girls on the internet doesn't mean there are no girls on the internet. It means that there's no gender. Like, there's no difference. You and me are the same.
Yeah. And I think
Aussie.
that's why I fell in love with the internet so much.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great place to like find your community, get radicalized, whatever you have it. But as we're saying, at the end of the day, like you kind of got to come back to like some kind of real world community as well. And so like I think that's where we're maybe having a disconnect still in like in our societies of like, okay, I found my radical community, but then like you meet in person. Hey Zenia.
Yeah,
Um,
Zenny is here.
So
but yeah, and
we have a new participant in tonight's Myriad of Chain. She's here. She's a bit late. Her name is Xenia. She might have opinions. She might listen. Maybe she'll say hi. I leave it all to her.
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late.
Are
I'm
you
glad you're here.
all right? Is your camera like you can't you turn on your camera, Zenny? Like if you can, it's fine. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to, with my yeah, I don't I'm not comfortable enough to showing
Okay,
my face. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay if your face is not on,
it's okay.
as
It's
long
okay.
as
We
your
were
voice
just
is.
You've
talking
got
about
your
like
voice. You've
anonymity.
got your
Yeah. I was actually in a Twitter space last night. Well, not last. Well, last night your time, Chloe. So this morning our time, Danny. With Wasis, with a bunch of Wasis. So as a background, there are two tribes of Wasis. One is the Loomlock Wasis, and the other is the Inversbrow Wasis. This is the Inversbrow Wasis. So anyway, so
Thanks for the
and I got
distinction.
on yeah, and I got on Twitter space, and Inversbrow was there, and a bunch of the other Wasis were there. I was the only girl. And we never realized I was the only girl because we never like had a call, right? So
So
it's
the first time you guys are actually getting on the call.
yeah, and then they obviously throughout the entire call they accused me of actually using a voice changer, so that's fine. So
There
yeah,
you go.
they're
They
still
didn't believe you.
asking. This might be a psyop, right? So
There's no girl lossy.
no girl on the internet, like that still should be a shirt. Yeah, I'd wear it.
So I would like to introduce a last issue for this episode because we're nearing the final time mark of the recording. But there is something that actually confuses me as a person. And this time I'm going to ask you a question as me. It's still not loaded, but I would like to know your opinion with this. Something I see discussed online a lot is pride flags, right? I see like there is a dozen already or something like that. Like I see there is a multitude of pride flags. I see there are like for orientation, for genders, some gender that I'm yet to understand because I'm an old man. Am I getting lost in translation generationally? Um,
Hmm.
does it all make sense? What is your point of view on this specific phenomenon?
Oh, for that, I have to I agree quickly that it's just generational. When we were
Generation.
kids, I think we had names, hundreds of names for things and hundreds of ways to express things that our parents and grandparents could never understand and thought we were all crazy. The music that we listened to, they thought we were wild. And I think every generation kind of has this understanding gap where I think a lot of these names and gender identities are coming from the younger generation and they're saying, hey, I want you guys, you older people, I want you guys to make the system so that we feel comfortable and this is how we want you to do it. So even at my, I'm 30, not that old, not that young, I don't know. But for me, like three genders is kind of like how I usually see it, like he, she, and like they. Like, and I know some people are like, okay, well, I don't really have like a gender, or it could be it or them, and there's like plural genders. And so I do get how like a gender could be important to feel comfortable. And same with the flag. So like for me, I generally only see around where I am at least in public, the one kind of pride flag. And it got updated now to have like the
Mm.
extra triangle in it. And to
Yeah.
me, I think it's great. I love seeing the flag around. I love seeing them like change it every year and add new like LGBT, LGBTQ, LGBTQI. I think it's wonderful. I think the more ways, like, because people put it up, you see it around town, you're like, okay, cool. Like this restaurant, like I don't know, like a few years ago, even for me coming out, you would never know which restaurant can I go into without feeling uncomfortable or which store. And so for the month of June, you kind of get to see all the restaurants that like for the rest of the year you know that at least if you go in a dress, for example, as a trans woman, they're not going to, deny you service, or the customers in that shop probably are also going to be somewhat okay with transness because the flag's outside and they're willing to eat there. So I think it's more about just making people feel included and comfortable. There's a lot of them, a lot of genders, a lot of flags, a lot of things. But I think for the most part, most people don't really care. It's mostly just each individual person being like, hey, how are you? What's your name? What are your pronouns? And I think most people will just, I think it's a new question to ask now. It's almost like new metadata that humans now have. They've been upgraded, and now humans have more metadata of like the pronouns metadata. And now it's just one more thing to ask. Like instead of, hey, what's your name? It's just, hey, what's your name? What's your gender? What are your pronouns? And so, yeah, I think it's just, the extra question isn't too bad. It's, I forget even myself. So.
Do you want my answer too, Danny? Like,
Of course, I want your answer too, and Daniel's answers, and everybody's answers. And there is no one else. But yes,
I think I agree. It's a generational thing, and I think when I was younger, I thought that the fact that the flag is a rainbow means that it represented every single sex and gender. So it like sexual orientation, gender. So why is it like why are you adding more to it and making it a thing? Like here's like I think in I like if the rainbow is more practical. I mean,
but technically, each color of the rainbow does represent different things. Like it's pangender, bisexual. Like each color,
I remember that. I remember that.
is a different thing.
Why do you add? Why are you adding more? There is like a.
So, but
like,
for example, there wasn't a color for trans people before. So the rainbow flag doesn't incorporate trans people or intersex people or. So I think it's just again like the younger generation continuing to say, hey, this flag is wonderful. It's great. It covered what we all knew about before, gay, sexual, bi, whatever. But there's actually lots of us too, whatever that us may be. And there's enough of us where we want to be seen on the flag too. So for those groups of people, they want to look at the flag and be like, oh look, I'm being represented. It's like seeing the Canadian flag and might feel proud, or the Indonesian flag, you might feel pride. It's like, at the UN, for example, if your flag is missing, there's a lot of flags at the UN. We can all use one world flag, but we don't because we want to kind of understand where we're from and understand our culture. And for a lot of people, like they want, I think to Danny's point, instead of having 35 different flags and one for each person, they're trying to find a way to kind of, how do we all come together under one?
well, for my perspective is like but what you say, maybe it's there are a lot of examples that are being put forward, and maybe it's in a demonizing way of people going, and probably much younger people who don't really understand that yet, who going like oh, I'm Danny sexual, I'm only attracted to Danny. So maybe it's said as a joke.
You can be asexual or only be attracted to yourself. That's a sexuality. Some
but
people
like so someone who's only attracted to one specific celebrity or something like that. So is it to me as me with my background is just being, you're attracted to something, and it's normal to we discriminate all the time.
Yeah, it's normal. They're just labeling it.
There are minor, there are minor discriminations all the time, right? You choose, especially when it comes to, and sorry, I'm gonna make a parallel that's a little bit uncomfortable, right? But especially when it comes to stuff you put or not put into your body, right? May it be stuff that's in your plate or stuff that's in other people's pants. Like these things, you discriminate all the time, right? It's a normal behavior. So
let's say I'm vegetarian or I'm pescatarian. There's still labels for that, and no one cares, right? If I say I'm vegetarian today and pescatarian tomorrow, and I'm vegan to the next day, what does it matter? So if I'm this or that or Z or her, to me, it's like people make it a bigger deal than maybe it is. Like again, gender is to me on the same level as what someone eats, right? Like I'm a meat eater. I like having sex with these people. This is my pants. I feel like this gender. It all shouldn't matter. Like I'm not going to be like, oh, you're vegetarian, you can't come in my restaurant. But that also happens. You have people being violent and aggressive. People being vegetarian or whatever.
Especially in Facebook groups. Like I saw this interaction. I saw this interaction on Facebook. Like there's this lady who shared like a vegetarian recipe in a vegetarian group, but she's not vegetarian, and she got accused of like cultural appropriation of vegetarianism.
What?
I swear to God, like there's a screenshot. I'll find it.
Like okay, today I don't feel like eating a specific Like today, I feel like eating carrots, right? Um, I'm not gonna say that today I'm a carrotarian. I'm just
But
gonna
what
say
if
like
you actually did feel it? But you actually might wake up on a day and be like, you know what? As of right now, I am only eating carrots. That is how I feel. I'm not saying making the decision for one day on purpose for one day. I'm saying there are many people who wake up in a day and be like, today I am a man. I feel like a man. I am a man. That is 100% correct. The next day they might wake up and they feel like a woman. And they are a woman 100% in mind and body and soul. And to me, it's like, I don't know if it matters that much. I don't know if I can to me, I do it with vegetarian veganism. Like I am fully vegan many days, and then a very good chef will cook something very nice. And I'd be like, okay, well,
Hmm.
and
cook
that's a
out,
silly example, but
cook out, man, cook out.
exactly.
Okay.
I like to hear Xenia's opinion on this. If you could introduce yourself briefly, because you just jumped in, and tell us if you want what you think about all this.
Well, I personally really agree with what Chloe said, that it's all about generations and all the stuff that that we can or cannot label ourselves or people what we want or what we don't want to be labeled for. So I think for me personally, I 100% agree with what Chloe said, that we share the same value of how we see things and perspectives. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna add.
All right, and so Pandu,
Okay.
are you Karatarian?
What? I eat carrots a lot. Yes. Why? I mean,
But more generally,
It's part of the mix.
what
it's part
about
of the mix.
what
Yeah,
about
we are
waking up
working
one
for it.
morning being a man, waking up the other
Oh,
morning
okay.
being a
So
woman?
I wanted to comment on that. Like, and this is again, like, this is my friend who's intersex, right? Like, who's biologically intersex. And one of the things that sort of like bothers her like the current, and this is her. This is not like again, like my principle is live and not live. Like what she's thinking is like, you know, she wasn't born, I guess, like biologically normal, and that's very challenging, especially developmentally. And
Who is normal?
I mean, when and it's like being intersex for her is like being it's not something that she chooses, not on a daily basis and not on a like a life basis. So I mean, there are a few things that I sort of like disagree with in terms of like um changing genders mid stuff, but that's like you know it's more related to whether it bothers others. Like whether like for example, like the bathroom situation and the sports situation. But again, I think that's sort of like her opinion. So
That makes
So
sense. So it's more like if it bothers other people, then it could
yeah,
be an
it's more
issue. But as
about
long as
like
it doesn't
bothering
bother
other
other
people
people,
than
then
like if it's just again, it's not because
when I have
if
a
it's
hard
your
stop
choice
between
and
it,
it's
but it
you,
is so
it's okay. But like
right.
when it basically infringes on rights of other people, that becomes like sort of an issue. I think that's and I mean I'm talking about like a person who has actual like issues throughout her life, right? So
Mhm.
she has had like a lot of experiences that are like very like similar to what trans folks go through, but just like without uh with added baggage of not really choosing it. So
Well, I mean, I
um
guess arguably trans people don't choose it either. Um, but yeah, that's big, how I would add. I
sorry
don't think it's a choice
sorry Claire,
necessarily.
again.
Oh, I was saying I don't necessarily think trans people choose it either. I don't think it's really necessarily a choice for most
That's true.
people
That's true. No, I
to
agree. I
like.
agree. I agree. I agree. I'm not saying trans people choose. Like it's like yeah. I'm sorry if that came out wrong.
No, I'm saying I see how I can like see. It's like people like I mean, back in the day, people would say the same thing about being gay or lesbian, like in general, right? Like oh, you could just choose to arguably be with a man sexually. even if you're a woman, even if you're attracted to other women, like there is like choices. Like you could also be in stealth, right, and choose to dress a certain way or choose not to take hormones. But like, yeah. Well, yeah, I do have to go in like 55 seconds to my next meeting.
Okay, 55 seconds mean that we do need to close this episode. We might actually want to do a follow-up on this because there are so many other questions that that we would like to discuss. Gender, yes, but what about social gender, biological gender, orientation, and is it a choice or not?
Transhumanism.
And transhumanism, but
That needs a flag.
in the end, we have concluded in this episode that LLMs might help us with sex ed, that not everyone is a monster, that there is no girl on the internet, that parenting is hard, and so is hosting. On a side note, I always doodle a little bit while I host. It helps me concentrating, and this is the first time ever in all the episodes I have host where I doodled a penis. You actually make of it whatever you want, and see you next time on A Myriad of Chains.